All right, why don't we get started? I think we'll have some people coming in from lunch. Welcome to the Cutting Through the Noise panel. I'm the moderator. My name is Roger Kibbe. I oversee conversational AI developer relations for Samsung Research America, and we're really using AI to reinvent the customer experience. But most importantly, I want to introduce three incredibly talented panelists I'm super excited to talk to today. Royal Candelan is an generative AI applied scientist, a Google developer expert, a friend, and an overall technology guru. Welcome, Roya.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here among you.
Dr. Sami Mian is the Chief AI Officer at Venture Employer Solutions, driving next-generation automation and data-driven products across HR and workforce technologies. And he's also a professor of AI and robotics at Arizona State University. Welcome.
Thank you. Excited to be here for the first time.
All right. And Jonathan Aberman is the CEO of Hupside, focused on getting tangible ROI from AI adoption, and is a sought-after expert partner to government and academic institutions on the future of technology and the intersection of innovation, entrepreneurship, and originality. Welcome, Jonathan.
But I'm not a doctor.
We have one doctor on stage.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so why don't we jump in with kind of the broad question, but one that gets asked a lot. What is an overly hyped AI technology or innovation that's being talked about a lot and believed in by a lot of people, maybe some of the people in this room, but it's way overhyped, and why? Jonathan, why don't you start us off?
AGI, honestly. You know, you're starting to see more and more people talk about a bubble. And it's this, there's definitely a growing sense of there's a mismatch between the promises of the bounty of AGI and actually what's being delivered. And what I think is really sad about it is that the reality is that whether we ever get to the kind of AGI that's being promised or not, the effect that it's having on all of us and will continue to have is permanent. It reminds me a lot, and we'll talk about this more. This feels a lot to me like the internet bubble, from the standpoint of if everybody had a sock puppet, you know, the internet was going to change the world. And then the party ended, but it didn't really end. The bubble ended, but the internet's everywhere. And I think the same thing's going to happen. But I think AGI, it's going to think like us. I don't care. I really don't care.
You and I talking about the internet bubble, we're exposing our age to the audience, but that's okay.
That's okay. We can talk about steam power and how it changed the economy later if you want.
Perfect, absolutely. Roya.
I want to second that on AGI. I think the promise that there will be this super intelligence out there and it's going to solve all of our problems, it's more sold to us than it can be reliable and accurate. But at the same time, I want to also talk about AI and how much we put on AI and how much of problems we think AI will solve, which is not the reality of it. We have seen a lot of, I think, changes that initially the thought was AI can make all of these and enable us to handle these problems, but then we realized that no, AI is not enough and we need human to supervise how AI works.
Sami?
Okay, so very much agree with both of you, so I'm going to take it to the other end.
There
I'm
you
going to
go.
talk about something that gets overhyped for the wrong reason. I'm going to say RAG and fine-tuning, because a lot of it came up in my roundtable yesterday. A lot of people are saying, well, you know, okay, we'll just throw RAG at it, we'll fine-tune it, it'll make it better. That is not the issue with 90% of the pipelines I've seen. It is the pipelines, it's the plumbing, it's you have a data problem, you have a governance problem, you have a end-to-end data flow problem, and that is what is limiting your AI's potential. Not the fact that you haven't fine-tuned it just the right way or you haven't picked the right parameter, like that is not it. And too many people just kind of use that as a catch-all statement for, don't worry, that's how it'll be better. A lot of consultants I've seen.
Funny about that.
All right, the kind of natural corollary question is what's running under the radar? What's underhyped that people aren't talking enough about?
Go ahead.
If I may go first. I think there are a lot of technologies out there that we are not paying enough attention to. One of my favorites is diffusion models. And that's the backbone of everything you see right now as image generation. but they are being utilized for text generation, and they are fascinating because they will surpass the problem with transformer, which is the backbone of LLMs today, with sequentiality, but they can make everything parallel, but it doesn't draw enough of attention. And I want to add one more thing out there, which my background is in healthcare, and data is always very hard to catch. In the healthcare, it's expensive and it's hard to annotate. But with the current state of AI, you can get a lot of synthetic data, and they can be utilized to advance the models, but they are so much lost in the hype of today generative AI.
So for me, there's two things. One is a mega trend that's not being talked about enough, in my opinion, which is, and you can't talk about it because you're suggesting the baby's ugly, but the problem with LLMs and AGI so far, and probably forever, is it's backward looking, and therefore it's an homogenization. You know, we talk about work slop. Work slop is an inevitable outcome of models that are fundamentally designed to homogenize and make information available to everybody. So that's not being talked about enough, in my opinion. But the second one is, I think that what we're going to start to see, and this gets to the internet bubble analogy, is one of the things that will arise after the quote bubble burst is going to be all the businesses that figure out how to create models that don't require a mass amount of compute to run. And I've seen some really interesting things, embedding it in ships to put it at the edge so robots can intermediate and manage if the network goes down, things like that. I think that there's going to be a lot of compute needs are going to fade away and already starting to fade away. And to me, that's when AI, machine learning, really becomes ubiquitous in the economy. So it does depend upon massive data farms.
I'm actually going to add to that because I think it's great. Again, my background, I'm originally a roboticist, so I build things that run on hardware. A lot of hardware, unless you're tied into the local grid or you're right by a giant source of water, I mean, you're very limited in what you can do from a resource perspective. And a lot of AI design we've seen today, as Jonathan mentioned, is very power intensive, very resource intensive. That is not scalable in today's world. I think by 2030, 10% of the entire power grid load is going to be data centers running AI. That is just not sustainable in the future. I think some projections from Gartner say 50% by 2050.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, the fundamental reality is that it's not going to happen, but I think what will happen is these models are incredibly powerful, and I think what we're going to see is a real segmentation in the access to AGI, because it will get better and better. I think that ultimately it becomes a scarce resource that people pay a lot of money for at scale, and what's more democratized would be the kind of AI that we're using now, help desks and, try this record if you like that one kind of things.
Well, and I think what's really cool that I've noticed happening is a lot of these hardware companies that work on chipsets, NXP, STMicro, Microchip, Renaissance, they're starting to lean in to the AI world and looking at, okay, how do we deploy something like this, but how do we optimize it so it runs on the edge? So the power impact is only 10%, so the memory usage is only 10%. So this is something that can be deployed at scale without having to worry about these traditional overhead requirements. And that's what I'm really excited about.
Mm-hmm. Great. We just heard Jeff Bezos say that data centers are going to be in outer space, which sounds like a pretty crazy idea.
Well, everything else is going to be in outer space, so why not data centers?
There we go. So what's a hard lesson that you've learned from an AI initiative or a technology choice that you made that didn't work out as planned? Go ahead, Roy.
I think I can go first. I might be the youngest in this group, so it's easier for me to talk about mistakes. When I was in the last semester of my PhDs, somebody invited me to work on a brain, human-brain interaction, and the idea was to get all of the brain waves and use AI at the time to extract information about the state of the emotion of that person, which sounded like the coolest idea. And I said yes, and we had very good initial results. And I persuaded this person to go and spend $40,000 of his own money to buy GPUs to test the next idea that we had to make this a little bit bigger. And it backfired because COVID happened and we couldn't get enough of data. So the hard lesson, which still burns in my heart, was that if you have a great idea, don't put all of your money on it and test it with hardware. Go for something like in the cloud or something cheaper to make sure that you can survive after that. So I got my lesson with $40,000 of loss. So.
All right, that's a good one.
So I have a few. The first one is, and the big meta again, is I spend a lot of time in education. AI, LLMs is a disaster for higher education because the students have access to it. They're using it like crazy. Roughly 90% of students in collegiate environments are using AI regularly now. The percentage of professors that use it and understand it is roughly 10%. It's a disaster. So why is it a disaster? Because students are not being taught to think, they're being taught to rely upon these tools, which are highly addictive by design. It's a disaster, it needs to be addressed. More narrowly, what I find very interesting is because HubSite can measure how people are tuned to using tools like AI, I can tell you that roughly 5% of a company will always be excited about working with new tools. It's a fact. But I can't tell you the number of times I've had conversations with people doing AI transformation who say to me, I got the early adopters, they're working with the great, I don't understand why everybody else won't. And the answer is because you don't understand, you don't have any way to predict how everybody else is going to work. And that to me is, I see that again and again and again and again. And if you wonder why a lot of AI deployments are not generating ROI, it's this mirage. Early adopters love it, everybody else is like, what's in it for me? And it fails. And that's a lesson I'm seeing again and again and again right now.
I think we'll probably have to talk about education after this question.
Oh,
'cause that's-
please, let's talk about education.
Absolutely. We are.
Well, the first thing I want to talk about, though, is as somebody who has now worked in a few corporate environments trying to do this AI transformation, this thing you see time and time again is you'll get a few engineers, they'll pull a few all-nighters, maybe drink some Red Bull, maybe drink some espresso, build an amazing prototype, right?
Yep.
Look at this, it's a chatbot that can do X, Y, Z. We've deployed it on a production environment or a staging environment. It works great. Cool, C-suite says great, I want it in production tomorrow. Go ahead, operationalize it. Never works. Never works.
Right.
Because it is, first off, it was a proof of concept, but second, it doesn't have the infrastructure and the plumbing that's needed to actually support it. Anybody get affected by the AWS outage last week? Yeah, I was up all night working on that. Cascading failures, which can take down your system. You have a proof of concept that was built on hopes, dreams, tears, and Red Bull.
Right.
That is going to break almost instantly. I know I've seen it as an academic as well.
Yeah.
And it has been a hard-learned lesson that you need to put at least a little bit of planning into that. You don't have to spend the money to implement the infrastructure, but you need to understand what does this look like when you scale it up, and you have both data coming in that can support this scale, and you have operational expertise to keep it running as it gets hit by those loads.
And not only are you talking about that, you're revealing the fundamental flaw in vibe coding, right? It's like there's a big difference. There's a big difference between building a prototype or building a SaaS business that can scale. 100%. Even if you forget about the hallucinations and the problems with data irregularities from the models.
And don't forget all the security issues too.
Are there security issues with the internet? I hadn't heard that.
With vibe coding, it's going to 10x at least.
It's insane. Yeah.
So I think the term productionalize it might be a 4-letter word of AI, actually, because that is the biggest challenge that I see people have. So very well put. So we brought up education. That's a great one, and it resonates. I have 2 college-age daughters, and I know what they use AI for. Sammy, I know you have a lot to speak about this. What is AI going to help education? Is it going to hurt it? What's happening? What's working? What's not working?
Oh boy.
We got an hour, right?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I'd like to say on the front lines teaching in the collegiate environment. So I'm a professor at Arizona State University, and we've decided to lean all in on AI, which I think is great. I think the tool is here, it's here to stay, and we need to find a way to embrace it. And to Jonathan's point earlier, a lot of students are already using it, and the reflexive reaction from a lot of academics has been, well, it's cheating. Anything AI use, all right, nope, you get a 0, you get written up, don't use it. And I think that's the wrong approach here. The beauty of tools like AI is that you're able to personalize just about everything. using LLMs. So you can personalize a lesson to yourself on, hey, I need to learn about general relativity, but please give me an analogy based on trains, because I love trains. Or use marbles to show me how time is affected by gravity. And I think that a lot of academics now, like at ASU, we're really trying to lean in again and introduce AI the right way in the classroom. I think teaching students how to use it competently and understand what it can and can't do is critical. One of the first things I have my students do is I say, all right, here's an interesting topic. Go have ChatGPT write you an essay on it. All right, let's print it out. Here's a red marker. Now go highlight everything that's incorrect. And try to explain to me why ChatGPT included this in the paper. I'm trying to teach students this is how you can problem solve and break down an AI's response and figure out, okay, how did it find this conclusion and is it true? Is it not? I think that's one of the first steps.
I agree. That's actually one of the best practices that I share when I've given a couple speeches this month at a couple of universities, talk about professors, and that's one of the great examples of best practices I recommend. What's really fascinating about education is that fundamentally, we went from a model that was based upon teaching higher reasoning and how to understand context of society. That's really where university started in the medieval ages, to now fact gathering at scale. In fact, that's really, and as a sort of a stepping stone to employment. It's a validation mechanism. And the problem now is that you've now introduced into the world a model that can synthesize and bring knowledge to bear. In fact, so that if you're teaching somebody to recite facts, you're not teaching them anything anymore. The good news is that we as humans, we are very, very good at using tools to create novelty. That's how we're hardwired. It's one of our drivers. Safety is another one, but novelty. So when you give somebody a tool and they learn how to use it, they actually are more creative than they are on their own. And this is the part that I think will be our saving grace for education, because AI, if people are taught how to use it properly, meaning use it as a synthetic tool to stand on top of the shoulders of giants, they will be more creative and more employable than they would be otherwise. But getting a group of tenured professors to understand that they have to change their preps and change the way they teach, to say that it's difficult would be to understate it. Education needs to change, but the business model is designed to resist change. And that is ultimately the biggest challenge for universities now.
Let me just pop in by saying I am not a tenured professor.
That's why you're happy to change.
Exactly. I'm a professor of practice.
No,
My job is to
I used to
teach
be
from
dean.
industry.
No, I used to be dean. I should be less flippant anyway.
No, I agree. The last thing I just want to add, something
Sure,
that I'm really
please.
proud of that I've been petitioning now for a couple of years, is I'm getting to launch a course in the spring on ethics and privacy in AI, which I think is really important. I think it's the role of the academic institutions to not only teach you how to use the tools, but when to use the tools, why to use the tools, what are best practices, how do we make sure we're doing things ethically and for the good and not for, we'll say, nefarious reasons. So I'm very excited about that, and I'm hoping, I think a lot of universities are following suit.
Roya, AI in education?
I think a lot of what was discussed here is based on the idea that we have these people already in a school and how AI would impact their progress and the job market that they are going to join after they are graduating. But the part that I wanted to touch base on is everybody who doesn't have an easy access to education, either inside the States or internationally. I was a part of this conversation earlier that we have parts of the world right now that access to education for women is it's not available anymore. And it's very sad, but if we can make that possible with AI, that would be, I would say, beyond amazing. And also in the States, I think the cost of education, sometimes it might be a barrier for people to actually feel the space they want inside the society, simply because they do not have the degree, or they did not get the skill set that they wanted. But with AI, we are able to fill that gap and basically make this a space level for everybody to be able to have a voice and use their intellect and skill set to do what they actually enjoy.
One of the things that, again, we were talking earlier about what doesn't get discussed enough, at the risk of being political, Politics is allocation of economics, and how AI is deployed in society, it will either be an unbelievable disequilibrium, or it will be an opportunity to really raise people up. And that's playing out in real time right now. But to your point, I mean, you think about if we started to use credentialing based upon somebody's inherent creativity, instead of did you go to Choate, it would actually change it would change the opportunities for people to get into the workforce. And AI does offer that potential.
Yeah, I think I need to have all three of you talk to my daughter's professors.
I'm there in a minute, you let me know.
All right. And I had to add on to that kind of AI and enabling people. I have a friend who works with a ed tech company around students who are really struggling, development disabilities, and it's incredible what AI can do to reformat that content for the individual student. So what an opportunity there. So my wife accuses me of being a news junkie, and yes I am, and I got up this morning and I first fired up and I looked at the news and I saw Amazon laid off 15,000 people this morning. And the question was, well, why? Well, they said, well, AI is helping us, do things faster, better, and we can lay these people off. So they kind of blamed it on AI. So are we doomed? Is this it? Are we all going to be replaced by AI? Are young professionals going to not get a job because all the entry-level jobs are going to be AI?
Absolutely not.
Perfect.
That's a short answer. But I think at the beginning, I started with AI hype, and I wanted to hint that I think a lot of the companies are putting so much trust into AI and AI being able to do so much jobs, and they are reducing workforce. And very soon after, they realize that the impact is way bigger and they require to actually bring more people back to fix everything that goes wrong with AI. So me, myself, I do vibe code sometimes, especially because I'm not a UI person. And the time it requires for me to go and figure out what is wrong after the AI created a code for me is way much longer than if I would sit down, read the documentation, and write the whole thing from scratch myself. And like everybody else here, I try to do a lot of teaching for the younger individuals. And I realize, I hear this fear a lot. They are like, we are the CS degree, third year, fourth year, what is going to happen next? I just want to assure everybody that, at least from my perspective, in my opinion, there would always be need for human, because AI is never intelligent enough to do what we are doing. And even if we have AGI and we have this super intelligence which is able to do everything that we can do, I still want to argue that we bring more to the table than what AI does. We have empathy and we have love, and we can never have a nurse who is AI and give us the same assurance that if a real nurse gives to us. I don't mind to go to a surgery by AI, but I want my surgeon at the end of the day to be human, to feel that connection that they want me to stay alive. They are not coded for me to stay alive. So if you are younger and you are starting up, AI is to augment your skill set and make you better at your job, but it's never ever gonna replace you, and you will always have a spot in society reserved for you.
Well said.
Yeah,
Well
I think
said.
so. I want to tie both of those together. So first of all, the issue is fundamentally, now we have a new value chain for business. We've always had an IT stack. We have cybersecurity infrastructure stack. Now we have an AI stack. And if you want to compete on efficiency, if you want to compete at scale, then you need very little human. The whole idea is you need very little human value add. All right. But if you're going to compete on differentiation, whether it's I don't want a robot to tell me I'm going to die, or I want customer service to have a person there to the phone, they're going to be, in every organization to a greater or less extent, a need for the human part of the value chain. The problem or the issue with a company like Amazon or some of these big companies is that they're approaching AI transformation like the Hunger Games. It's like, here's the tool, you figure it out. They see the 5% that are early adopters and think if they whip everybody long and hard enough, they'll all be expanders. And to Roy's point, eventually they're going to realize they're going to need people to come back. But A monopoly that competes on size, like an Amazon, will approach AI very differently from a high value add consulting firm or a high value add healthcare firm or something where the human intervention. So the only lesson we're learning right now from Amazon is that they're in love with the tools and they're telling me they're not going to compete on differentiation because they're monopoly. That's all they're telling me. It doesn't make me more or less likely to buy their stock. It just makes me think that if I was going to be a value add coder or a value add leader, I probably would look at them first as a place to work.
And I think it was actually 30,000 that Amazon's
Yeah, it's
laying off.
crazy.
Was it 30,000?
And another 10,000 early next year.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So-
Even
It is
more numbers.
it is the Hunger
Yeah.
Games, really.
Yeah.
Well, I got to be careful. I'm a former Amazonian. I spent several years there, and so I spent part of this morning reaching out to some of my old colleagues. Hey, how you doing? Everything okay? Reach out if you need anything. We've seen this at a lot of big companies, though. A lot of layoffs where they're claiming it's AI. I think the biggest disappointment I saw was a major consulting firm that said we're going to lay off some 5-figure number of people because we can't reskill them into AI.
Yeah.
My initial thought is, sorry, you want to come and consult my business on how to use AI and you can't even retrain your own staff?
Exactly.
It's,
I know who it is, too.
oh, yeah. A lot of us do.
But we're not going to say.
It strikes me if you're CEO of a company and you are planning a layoff, that AI is some good kind of cloud cover.
That's exactly
To blame
right.
it on.
That's exactly right. I think what happened during COVID is a lot of larger tech companies. This is the cycle, right? You always hire ahead of demand, and you always cut when demand's not there. That's the game. And there was a lot of sloppy hiring done during COVID. A lot. So it turns out that you have people that aren't particularly productive, but this way you have an excuse. It's not your business is bad. You're just using this new tool to capture efficiencies. It's not a good look.
Amazon hired me during COVID. What are you saying?
I'm saying you're excellent. Well, obviously, you were smart enough to get out. What can I tell you?
Fist
You
fight on
realize
stage.
this is being videoed. We are completely hosed, just so you know that. We're never going to work again. Okay.
All right, we only have like about 3 minutes left, so maybe a 1 minute if you just want to bookend it with you want people to walk away with some thoughts for today.
If you got time, I'm doing a presentation at 2:30 where I'm going to talk about upside and my vision for originality and why I think it's important. If I've whetted your appetite, please stop by. I'll be there.
Perfect.
One thing I'll say is I've had a lot of people ask me, like, what do you think the value add is of ChatGPT or any of these AI tools? And I equate it to Excel in the early 90s.
Absolutely.
A lot of people use Excel to do basic math, right? Here's 10 numbers, sum them up for me, cool. But we all have that colleague who can do pivot tables and just do what looks like magic with Excel, a power user, right? And today, tools like ChatGPT are becoming exactly that. You have a majority of people who are using them as the new Google, simple search, tell me something. But then you have these core group of users who've spent enough time to really understand this is the kind of prompt I need to write. If I ask the question this way, I get a good response. If I add a question this way, I get a bad response. Those are the new power users, and they're going to be able to do magic. The nice thing about the speed of this technology is it's becoming more easily accessible to people day in and day out. So more people are able to become power users faster using AI tools. And
100%.
that's what excites me about this. It's democratizing that level of almost tech expertise.
Here.
Roya.
And if I just may to add to that, I think if you are here, you are already halfway into the game, so please start building. And if you want to know what to build first, my idea is think about if you had unlimited budget to have any interns, and you can teach them to do a job effectively in 3 months. That would be your first AI agent that you can build in-house. And if you get stuck, you can ask any of the AI chatbots for help. But start building for yourself. You will see it's very, very easy.
Perfect, thank you. Well, I think when we had our prep call last week, we said we could probably talk for hours about this, and it feels like we can.
Yeah.
But we're running out of time, so Roya, Sammy, and Jonathan, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.